McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. Today is Friday. That means it's the Healing Circle. And that's what we'll be talking about today in a couple of arenas. One, the public service arena, politics, talking to incumbent Fifth Ward City Council member Jeremiah Ellison. He's seeking re-election. Election day is next Tuesday. We want to make sure that you get out and vote. We've invited all the candidates in that ward and other wards to be on the program, and we're glad that Jeremiah Ellison showed up, and we're glad that he's here. But we're going to talk about healing in other arenas as well, particularly in the area of art and culture. You'll be excited to talk to the Hammonds, who are doing major work in the region as curators and producers of art and artistic activity. I want to begin, though, by asking you to, as always, support this work, help us grow. We've crossed the 500 threshold of subscribers to the Conversation with Al McFarlane. We want 1,000. So what I need you to do, wherever you are, make a note, go to YouTube, Insight News MN, find us there, subscribe, cost you nothing. You get notified for all of our live streams, and like and share. And then tell everybody you know. In fact, if you got a minute, just send out a tweet or Facebook post or make a phone call, send a text, let people know that we're doing this right now. As I said, today's Friday, the Healing Circle. Normally you're here with my co-host, Dr. Bravada Garrett-Akinsanya. She's not here today, but who is here is Dr. Oliver Williams, one of our partners in the Healing Circle. Dr. Williams, brother, sir, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Good afternoon, first of all.
Yeah, good afternoon to you as well.
Well, let me ask you to do what Dr. B does so eloquently, but you as a healer, introduce our protocol for the Friday Healing Circle program.
Well, the protocol is actually a thing that we do to sort of acknowledge different things, but also our capacity to be able to pass the stick around, to share conversations. You know, I'm from Detroit originally, and so if you go to the African American Museum in Detroit, they have the way that the museum is set up is you can have conversations in one part of the building and hear it on the other side. And that was an African design. And it was used by the king to be able to have conversations with people. So you could hear even almost a whisper, you know, from one side to the other. But the notion is similar. It's an African custom. Some people say also it's a Native American custom to be able to pass the stick around, to be able to hold conversations, and it's in a circle. And so there is no situation of hierarchy where people can get a chance to sort of share conversations and discussions. And one of the things that we try to do is to recognize that when we're talking in the circle and talking to each other, there are different things that we recognize. We value the ancestors, and we value the ancestors because the ancestors are closest to God. And one of the things that we try to do too is to be able to communicate with another rather than there being a hierarchy. We value everyone's voice in the conversation. So you hear my cat in the background. So and the cat's going to the vet. So any rate, what we want to do, and she doesn't like going to the vet. So I apologize for that. So what I want to do is to be able to share with you the idea of us of talking with each other and sharing conversations with each other, not in a hierarchy, but in fluidity, to be able to talk with each other. And with that, I'll pass it back to you, Baba.
So I'm taking the talking stick back, and thank you, Brother Dr. Oliver Williams. Well, let us begin by inviting Jeremiah Ellison to open the program, and let me introduce him. I've got some notes here. As I mentioned before, he's the current city ward, fifth ward alderman, city council member for this neighborhood, North Minneapolis, where I am right now. And I might add that he is also Insight News' endorsed candidate for the seat. We support the work he has done, and we are inviting people to return him, to continue him in service to the ward and in service to our city. Jeremiah, what I want to do is ask you to just talk about why you continue to seek the office and what you feel differentiates you from other candidates in the race. Why are you running for re-election? And what are some of the things that you're most proud of having accomplished so far as the council member for Ward 5? Jeremiah, of course, you can take the conversation wherever the spirit leads you. This is a place for you to talk to our community and talk to the world. Jeremiah Ellison.
Thank you so much for having me, Al. I love the spirit of the talking stick, and so I appreciate it being extended my way. And so, I've been in office going on 6 years now. We've been through a lot as a city and as a community in that time. And when I stepped into office, I wanted to come into office on the premise that we've got deep legacy issues here on the North Side, but that we also have a tremendous amount of creativity, of resilience, and that we have a version of the North Side, a version of our community that we deserve, that we're fully capable of. And so it's about sort of suppressing that or getting rid of that narrative, that story of despair that I think often is imposed on us by people who don't live here, and accentuating the creativity. And so to that end, you got to have people who need to have dignified and secured and affordable places to live. I've made housing security and dignity and affordability a big part of what I've done in office. And I feel like there's more to be done in terms of perpetually affordable home ownership, not just rental properties, but allowing folks to build that on that legacy. Owning commercial space. I've done a lot of work, with the Commercial Property Development Fund to increase our business owners here being able to own the spaces, the buildings on our major corridors here. Obviously, public safety, creating partnerships, intergovernmental partnerships to create safety all across the community has been a big part of what I've done. And I know that conversation has been a really hard one, especially in the ebbs and flows of the last couple of years in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, in the wake of the pandemic where we had this spike in violent crime and people were looking for solutions. Solutions didn't feel easy to come by. And then lastly, environmental justice. I know that if you go talk to your average person on the North Side and ask them if climate justice is a major issue for them, they might not say yes, right? But when you ask folks if they feel safe planting a vegetable garden in their backyard, if you ask folks if their kids are dealing with asthma, then people will start to realize the ways in which environmental justice is hitting us here on the North Side right at home. And it is about creating cleaner air, cleaner soil, cleaner water. That's been a major part of what I've done in office as well. And so happy to talk about all of those things. But you talk about healing, and that term resonates with me when I think about the work that I've done while in office.
Well, go in on that. Healing, how do you see yourself, Jeremiah Ellison, as a healer? How do you see the work of the city council itself and you as a member of it as a moderating, healing, growing, enabling force for our community?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to talk about a specific issue that I've been dealing with for the past couple of months. It's related to our tree canopy, which a lot of folks I know don't spend a lot of time thinking about. But when you think about the air quality issues we've had in the last couple of years, when you think about the heat, right, the overwhelming heat that we've had in the last couple of years, having a healthy and thriving tree canopy is a part of how we have cleaner air. It's a part of how we have shaded areas and how we can everything from limiting our utility bills, right, to cleaner air can rely on a healthy tree canopy. We have this major threat to our tree canopy that was brought to my attention by a number of community members, and it's a little bug. It's called the emerald ash borer, right? One of these issues, when I knock on doors, nobody's going to come ask me about emerald ash borer, right? But it's having this huge effect on the community. And not only was it destroying the tree canopy, but the park forestry, the city's forestry, started removing trees really rapidly, which on one hand, you're like, okay, I get it. We've got this infestation. The trees got to come down. On the other hand, two other things were happening. We already have a diminished canopy over north, right? When you think about equity issues, the tree canopy over north is not as strong as other parts of the city. That was true before emerald ash borer. But then the cost of tree removal was being passed on to residents of the community. And these tree removals can be incredibly expensive. Average household was looking at about $20,000 for these tree removals. So we've got, and as you can imagine, Al, for the average Northsider, being slapped with a $20,000 bill, that is going to disrupt their ability to stay in their home, right? And so, with a lot of collaboration from community members, I ended up going to for a grant that is going to allow us to remove trees that without overburdening the cost onto residents. And it's going to be replacing those trees as well, so that we can so that we do not totally destroy our tree canopy over north. And it's going to allow us to plant new trees so we can actually grow and repair that tree canopy. I mentioned that story because it's one of those things that people might not think about. But here in this story, you have everything from housing security and stability, environmental justice, utility bill payments and all of those things are all wrapped up in one little bug that was destroying the tree canopy. And so those are the types of things that I like to get in on the weeds on, that residents might not know about, but that when we get it right, we improve people's lives.
Well, it's something that I think that some of us have memory. I've been where I am here in North Minneapolis since 1973. But I remember my street, Thomas Avenue, such a beautiful, beautiful street, mainly because of the arching canopy standing at Plymouth Avenue looking south towards Olson. It was actually a parade way. So beautiful, but destroyed by Dutch elm. So this is not the first rodeo.
That's right. That's right.
Infestation. And that wiped the entire, I think, metro area. They have to replant, remove all of the elm trees, most of them. So here we go again. Is that correct? But I think
this is 2.0 of that.
Yeah, and I think it's wonderful though that you are taking the time to explain all of the adjacent impacts and the adjacent reasons for us to be knowledgeable and how it affects all other elements, environment, health, weather, heat, and beyond. It's an awesome thing. Well, let me ask you to name some of what you would say have been your best accomplishments during your the last term. Let me say before that you can see so much happening in North Minneapolis right now, and I'm going to lay it all at your doorstep. I'm so impressed with the corner of Plymouth and Penn. North Point is about to be fully functional again. Massive investment. The Regional Acceleration Center, full use. Not Cura, but UROC, before your time, but still there. Urban League back online now. And then the same kind of thing is happening on West Broadway. So talk about what you think are some of the major accomplishments that you've had a hand in.
Yeah, well, making sure that we've got healthy services, that our institutions are healthy, like that's especially important, especially after COVID was so detrimental to our community. It not only did the disease actually hit Black communities and poorer communities disproportionately across the country, but also, it took a huge blow to our economic institutions as well, and our institutions. So that's incredibly important. One of the big things that I think is critically important is around economic development and job creation. And so I want to talk about two things in particular. One is around the ability for Northsiders to actually own our commercial corridors, right? And so with the Commercial Property Development Fund, the vision wasn't just that we would be able to, help people buy buildings. It was that we would be able to help Northsiders buy buildings. It was that we would be able to help the businesses in those buildings that often were renting be able to buy those buildings. And so, when you look at Zara, which is on West Broadway, that's owned by Kenyon McKnight. A lot of folks, not that I want to preface, every single person that has bought a building over north that has a long legacy over north or lives over north, they're all self-made, right? Like the city didn't come in and make anybody. I want to make that clear.
Yeah.
But we were seeing that some people, that a lot of folks over north, a lot of businesses, they were just missing just that tiny amount of push, of support that they needed in order to successfully own a building on the corridor, not just on West Broadway, but further north as well. And so with with Kenya McKnight, with Tri Construction and Calvin Littlejohn, who lives on the north side, with folks even like Houston White, we saw that we were put in a position to help them own these buildings through the Commercial Property Development Fund, which was not a tool that existed in the city up until 2019, right? And what it does is it allows a little bit of gap financing where people might have that little difference in cost, and it goes from being I'm just out of reach from owning that building to now I can own it. And I just named 3 examples, but we actually have dozens of examples of new ownership. Jesse Ross is another person, owns something on North 2nd Street on the other side of Washington there. And so I think that that's really important. I don't want to just see a dozen owners of our commercial buildings on the north side. I want to see hundreds of owners. I want to see hundreds of my neighbors being able to own these buildings. And so we got to keep growing that tool. We got to keep making those investments. If I had my way, we're going to find a way to make those awards actually a little bit bigger, give people even a little bit more of a cushion to own securely. But that's a big one. It's something that we didn't have prior to my being in office. One former banker described it as patient capital, and that's what folks need, right? When you've got a whole community that's been locked out of banking. The other thing is around job creation, and so there's a tremendous workforce, green energy jobs training center on Plymouth Avenue. Jamet Staples is somebody that lives on the north side. The city has a history of giving him a hard time, but he's created a really successful project, and I want to ensure that his project remains successful into the future. Green jobs are where we're headed, right? Solar installation, other types of weatherization and those types of things. And so he's got that going on. It's a really innovative workforce center that we've got right here. Obviously, we've got a huge legacy with Summit, OIC, but we also have Devin George and Jamil Ford, both Northsiders, both longtime Northsiders, and Bill English, who a lot of folks know, working on a modular housing factory that will go on Washington. And this will not only address good paying jobs into the community, to hundreds of good paying jobs into the community. I believe the starting rate is around $30 an hour once that facility comes online. But it also will address housing needs. Modular is a more efficient way to build. It creates some cost savings that don't rely on government subsidy, and so we can start to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone with a project like that. So I'm really excited to see that project come online. That's in the economic development realm. I could go on and on housing.
Talk a minute about, if you would. I drive by the V3 swimming project.
Yes.
I think that's huge.
It's absolutely huge. A lot of folks will remember that for a long time, if you wanted a lap pool, and we used to have, my mom was the swim coach over at North Community Y for a long time. We used to have a swim team over there, these kinds of things. And the Northside Y is still a tremendous, amenity, but it has sort of it's built itself to be geared towards younger and younger audiences, younger and younger kids. And so having a lap pool, having an Olympic-sized pool, having a full-fledged, sports facility is something that we've lacked for a little while. V3 is going to be a tremendous asset when it's done being built. I've been able to get a number of tours over there in the last year or so, and we deserve state-of-the-art facilities. I think that is, that's always the conversation, since I've been in office is, well, what does the North Side deserve, right? And how do we make sure that the things we deserve don't actually displace us, right? Because we deserve both, right? We deserve that safety and security, and we deserve the good amenity. And so to see V3 come online, I know that the state put a lot of money into that. Obviously, the project team there has done a tremendous job. I was honored when the city was finally able to put $1 million into that project to make that project sort of get it over the hump and make it real. I can't wait until they cut the ribbon on that building.
When is it scheduled to be open?
Oh, you know what? I believe they're almost done with construction. I would imagine that they've got probably another year or less of construction before they're ready to go. But yeah, so I don't want to speak on behalf of the project team that's actually building the thing, but I would imagine that they'd be open by spring or summer of 24.
Wow.
So.
Last comment before you leave, council member.
You know, it's been an honor. I know that you guys' next section is going to be about the arts. For those that know me well, they know that I used to be a mural painter and an artist myself. And so I really, I'm looking forward to you guys being able to talk about the ways in which the artistic practice it can really aim towards healing. And some folks, when I first got elected, said, you went from being an artist to, working on policy development. How are these things related? And in my experience, everything that I did as a public artist, all of the critique, all of the creative process to get towards a solution, to make people feel things, to make people feel seen and supported. These are the things that politics should be made of. And so I've tried to bring them into the work that I do. So thank you for having me. And I look forward to the next section.
Hang out as long as you can. If you want to jump back in, jump right back in. I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is Friday. It's the Healing Circle, co-hosting with Dr. Oliver Williams. And Dr. Williams, let me do a little bit of the background on the bios for our next guest, and then have you bring them in as well. But, Beverly Tipton Hammond is an ordained elder, a dancer, choreographer. She's a visual artist, a singer, a songwriter, a curator, and entrepreneur. She's got an MBA from Concordia University. She began painting 14 years ago as a hobby, and now has produced over 200 paintings. Her medium is acrylic ink, ink marker on canvas and wood, as well as collage. Her artwork was featured in the Hennepin County Employee Exhibit in 2017, Hennepin County Health Department Exhibit Hall, and most recently, her Hatitude series was featured at the Minnesota African American Heritage Museum and Gallery in the Grace Exhibit 2018-2019. The series features vibrant colors and hats inspired by Beverly's passion for millinery, and it was also featured in the Star Tribune. In 2020, Beverly and her husband, Drew Hammond, were invited to participate in the creation of the Black Lives Matter mural, which is sponsored by the Minnesota African American Museum and Gallery. In February of 21, they hosted social justice and art exhibit at the Northrop King building to commemorate Black History Month. She has participated in other social justice murals in Minneapolis and is a member of the Rojo Collective and series on the board of the National Lutheran. She serves on the board of the National Lutheran Choir. The Tipton Hammond Arts Gallery opened in April of 2020 in the Northrop King building, where she and her husband, Drew Hammond, created inspiring and colorful acrylic paintings, intriguing collages. She's also started the Pure Water School of Dance, teaching ballet and Afro-modern dance in the gallery. She enjoys the creative process and loves to inspire and share her passion for art. The gallery is located at 1500 Jackson Street, Suite 261 in Northeast Minneapolis. Now, her husband, Drew, is a self-taught artist who was born in 1964 in Baltimore, Maryland. He grew up in Edmondson Village community, attended schools in Maryland and South Carolina. He credits God with endowing him artistically with the gift and affinity for the arts. His work focuses on expressing the people in the African American diaspora, which is an important and personal undertaking in a society filled with disregard and misinformation. Of his medium versatility, he most works in collages, which provoke thought and create visual disputation and resolve. He and Beverly, as I said, are the co-founders of the Tipton Hammond Arts, an interdisciplinary arts studio in Northeast Minneapolis. He's about to release a book of haiku and art in 2024. Thank you both for being here. I want to pass the talking stick back to you, Dr. Oliver, to finish and bring in our guest.
Well, as we talked about, and as you talked about, Al, in your introduction, that art has the capacity to be able to, move people in different ways. And when I got in contact with Drew and Bev, their art is the thing that moved me. I've got about 3 pieces that they have developed that I purchased, and I dig it quite a bit. But their studio is interesting too, because not only does it display their art, there's other ways to be able to bring people together to have conversations, to display their work, but I think also to heal. And Bev and Drew use it as an opportunity for people to be able to get together and to share with one another. So with that, I just like to bring them on and get a chance to have a conversation with them and explore some things with them. I'm sort of interested in their history in development and doing the art, and also to hear some other interesting things about them. They have a connection to Baltimore, and that I think is also quite interesting as well. But I found them to be a healing presence in my life, and would like to say welcome and glad that you could be here today.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you
It's
so
an honor
much.
and a privilege and a blessing. Thank you, Mr. McFarlane, for having us on today.
Yes.
So
Well,
go ahead. Go ahead. No,
Well, I'm going to pass the talking stick to Bev and Drew. Welcome. So good to see you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so what's on your mind? Let's talk about healing and the topic that is topmost in your spirit at this moment.
Well, that's interesting because it seems to be very prevalent. I mean, there's the art creation, creating art, Black art that speaks not just to us, but to our culture as a whole and to people of any race. When they come into the gallery, we get the same message, right? They step into the gallery and say, oh, there's quite an interesting and wonderful energy in this space. And I'm like, yeah, it's
Holy Spirit.
It's the presence of the Lord. You don't have to call it that, but then you come in and you don't want to leave. And there's a book nook, and sometimes there's beverages, and there's a welcoming spirit. Hospitality kind of runs in my family and his too. But it's interesting how a lot of people have come through, not just to buy art, but just to hang out, just to talk, just to share. And as Dr. Oliver Williams said, we have concerts. I teach dance there. We've had some art talks there. And so it is, there's a movie called Something the Lord Made. That's all I have to say about that. But what's important to me about art creation is that it first heals us.
Mm-hmm.
It's therapeutic for us. And when Drew and I first met, our first date was at the Smithsonian Gallery in Washington, D.C. And I thought, okay, maybe that's the sign. And then the first date at my house, what did we do? We put up 2 easels side by side and painted.
Wow.
Yeah, that was like 20 years ago I did it. Yeah. And so art has always been a part of who we are, but I personally never took any real art classes. And so the more I painted, the better I got.
Mm-hmm.
And then when we got here, our Papa Tipton said, can you move to Minnesota? And that's why we moved here. And God said, this is going to be your promised land. Well, it didn't feel like that when we got here, but my goodness, we would have never, I don't think, had a gallery in Baltimore, and it was meant to be. And it is a haven, not just for us, but for anybody who wants to come and just enjoy colors. There's a very diverse works that when you look at our work combined, you see a plethora of colors, ideas, and things that inspire. But what I love is that the youth come in, the children come in, and Drew has an art table set up for them to start creating. And the parents can leave and whatever the kids need. And they love to take pictures. We take pictures of them before they leave. And it's a wonderful thing that God has blessed us with, to be able to offer that to the community.
I don't recall a time in my life not doing art. Self-taught, been doing art I don't know, I'm 59, so I would just say probably 58 years. um, and it was just a hobby more than anything, initially just a gift, and it seemed like that gift didn't become explosive until we moved here to Minnesota, which was just in 2016. I've never sold a piece of art until I moved here to Minnesota. Never fathomed having a gallery to even display art. And it's just been incredible. So it's kind of like one of those things where, the biblical adage is your gift will make room for you.
Yeah.
And this one has truly made room for us. Just to piggyback on all what was said and shared thus far, just to reiterate, Bev said that it's more than a gallery, and it really is. I mean, we're just so blessed, and we're also compelled to share our gift as creatives. And we also believe in the power of giving back and the strength that comes with that. We host up and coming youth artists at our space. We'll give them a huge wall and maybe 4 or 5 easels to present.
And sell.
And sell.
Yeah.
And we do that for older artists also, but more inclined to work with the youth since they're coming into their own. And one of the things that I always ask youth artists, are you an artist? And they would just struggle. And I would say, hey, say you're an artist, because that's exactly who you are. So we give back in that capacity. We have teacher friends who would bring their students to our studio also. And for some of them, it's the first time that they ever been into an African-American studio. And then they don't want to leave with that. But I have a remedy, Mr. McFarlane, regarding how we can, as teachers or educators, can get our children. And I don't really want to reveal this because I should patent it, but I'm gonna share with you guys what strategy I've devised. So Bev and I have a lot of prints of our artwork for sale. And so one of the things, when a classroom full of kids, when we have a gallery full of youth, I would tell each one of them to pick a print. And, the adult or a teacher that's accompanying them would say, Drew, they don't have the money for blah, blah. And I'm like, no. Just pick a print. It's on the house. I mean, we create work. And how I ask them to pay for it is to tell me why they picked that piece.
Wow.
Once they pick that piece, I've just opened up everything that I need to know about them. And for the duration of their stay in our gallery, it's just incredible because I already know. So I link that back to just teaching and educating and getting to know the children, or the students rather, in your space as an educator. So there it is. It's out there now, and I know everybody's going to be utilizing that.
It's a great idea.
It's made so much money off of that. but so just and in terms of our art, Dr. David Driscoll, I guess close to 50 years ago, gave a sat-down interview with Tom Brokaw regarding the Black arts. And I thank God for him because it was a risk. Now, we've always been doing art as a community, but until he had that sat down, that's when it skyrocketed for a lot of Black artists, for all of us. So we definitely stand on his shoulders. But one of the things that, also compelled us is being African-American and not seeing our art, seeing ourselves represented in a lot of museums and so forth. So that alone is it's so imperative that we do this caliber of art in terms of African-American diaspora in the community and so forth, because it's our narrative. And we all know that our narrative can be misused, misjudged, and misinformed. So it just behooves us to be able to create and display our narrative and show, what our narrative truly is. So.
And Drew, what we're going to do now is cycle through some of the prints that you sent to us.
Oh, yeah.
They're beautiful.
Okay.
And so with some of that, can you explain some? I see you got Bobby Rush over to the right from Chicago. Who's
Yeah. I had the fortunate our manager, who's also Bev's cousin Kim. She had a friend who worked. She was his assistant.
Congress,
yeah,
yeah.
worked with Congressman Rush, and commissioned me to do this piece for him. And I was just so floored. So after I got up off the floor, I said, all right, how and what would I do? So when you get commissioned, you research. And so I understood that Mr. Rush was also a member of the Black Panther Party.
right.
And Mr. Rush also is a preacher. So I did this piece, and the theme is called From the Panthers and Politics to Preaching. So it's the 3 Ps about Bobby. And so when that arrived in DC, I didn't know that it took all that it takes to get something to actually be, brought into the halls of Congress. But a few months later, I got a call from him. And Doc, I was like, wow, this is just incredible, And so whenever he was interviewed on MSNBC or something like that, I could see my piece in the background of his office, and I just lose it, So the 4 women on the left, that's a montage. I just got. I think I do more work of creating Black women in the arts. Again, it goes back to marginalization, and I'm just compelled to I do that just effortlessly, and it's just so important that I do that. So
Very nice. There's some. Talk about these 2.
this is my social justice, and this is just historic. The first one features the first one to the left features the ship, and just it's how can I explain this? So, not being an esteemed orator, this is my art doing the talking.
Yeah.
You see remnants of the movement and our existence since 1619, since the arrival of us here in these states. And there has always and always will be a progression, but we can't forget. You want to say something about the one in the
One in the middle? Oh, yeah, the collage in the middle. We were at the Smithsonian African American Museum in Washington, and there was a young white boy standing in front of us looking at, was it MLK?
King, yes.
So looking at Martin Luther King, trying to figure out, what is this? Who is this? Who is he? And there was a moment, there was a moment where the little boy turned and looked back at Drew just to see who was behind him. But he was getting an education, not sure how he was getting it or what it truly meant. And so the juxtaposition of this young white boy and slavery and the messaging coming from that collage has a great impact to me, saying that all history is our history. And our history wants to be hid. They want to hide our history and deny the trauma. But this is evidence, and the roots still remain, unfortunately. So I thought that was a very powerful piece that you did.
And I said in a couple of talks a while ago that my quest is for this to be all social justice art to be in some kind of museum. I don't know, that's a mile long, and people will come in there 50 years from now and say, wow, I can't believe that America was like this.
Yeah.
And that's my quest. And God, we serve a God who can pull that off. But in the interim, Nina Simone once said that an artist must always remain relevant to the times. So until then, I shall keep doing social justice art.
Absolutely.
Amen. That was good.
Yeah. Well, the video, the picture that I've got with I Am a Man that you did moved me. I remember you had it on Facebook, and saw it on Facebook. I said, hold that one. I'll be by to buy it.
You sure did.
Don't let it go nowhere.
Hold it.
Here it is. The one,
Oh,
two.
go back.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I like the one on the left too.
Oh, yeah.
That one moved me. That was at your studio as well.
Yeah. That's the second one I did of that piece. It's called Favelas. And the favelas are the ghettos in Brazil.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to pay homage because that's part of our history too. I mean, we were scattered all over the Caribbean.
That's right.
And you know, it's just so funny. I've never been to Brazil, but I'm a big fan of that nation. But it's so interesting that you have all of that beauty in the valley, including the beaches and so forth. But you look up, all you have to do is just look up and you can see all of that poverty.
Right.
And it's just amazing how that is structured like that. I mean, it's like, and those people that's in those impoverished places are what keeps Brazil economically afloat and don't even receive economics. These are people who help Brazil maintain its status, and just to see that. So I wanted to give it the color that it already has, because even though that's impoverished demographic, it's beautiful with the colors that they have up there in those favelas. So just wanted to homage that. And on the right, the poster says, well, we still talking about the Brazilian piece. On the right, the signage is "We're of Africa," and it's so small. And the other one says "God is watching," and the one on the far left, I can't
so small.
make that one out right now, but it was also probably referencing their them being impoverished.
Well, I would last few years ago, I went to Brazil.
Okay.
I was went to Espírito Santo and saw the favelas there, but also got a tour of some of the sections. And there was one section of the community that we went to where they had divided up some of the slave property.
Wow.
We saw some of the the land that the slaves had lived on, and they're developing it more for education for people within the community. Former slaves that or people from the families in that community, and they know the history of it. And they talked about the history of why the owners gave up the land, because they gave the land to the church.
Wow.
And they said that they realized that that they needed to make a change. So they also got married to some of the slaves. I said, that was very forward thinking of them. They said, no, they were doing it because if they didn't do it, they're going to get killed.
Right.
So what they did was they ended up having a moment of clarity to be able to help them to, think about what they needed to do to treat people right.
Right.
But the large section of Brazil is Black.
Yeah.
But they treated Native Americans very poorly. Native Brazilians, Aboriginal Brazilians, very badly too, and still are doing that.
Wow.
We want to visit them, as well. And then it was also the mix of Black and Indian that and seeing the consequence of them intermarrying was interesting as well, in terms of what they look like, but how they hold on to their traditions and values and faith. Very interesting experience.
Wow. That is awesome.
Yeah, so I'm wondering whether that painting also is a thing that helped me be moved by it as well. A lot of it. Yeah.
Art speaks.
Yeah, it does. It really does. And I appreciate the fact that you, my son Sam is an artist as well.
Yeah.
And Drew and Beth have been a good mentor for him as well. So
we love some Sam. Yeah. So I see my hat is up. So there's a story to the hats. I've painted over 30 hats. I started painting when I came here because it's just something that I love, from wearing hats in church over many years. Don't really wear them much now. But I had a collection and I said to myself, well, I think I'm going to go out and try the market and see, is there some interest in this art? And I ended up going to there's an African-American women's hat luncheon. I took my maybe 5 hat originals, prints, bags, cards, and set up a vending table, and didn't do too well on sales. But this one woman kept walking by and looking, not saying much. And it turned out that it was Tina Burnside. And she was looking to begin the Minnesota African American Heritage Gallery and Museum. And we connected. Next thing you know, I'm doing a Hatitude exhibit along with the incredible photographer Walter Griffin. He's got his photographs on one side and my hat's on the other. And boy, did we have church. I mean, for the opening, Mr. McFarlane, we had Tom Tipton in the wheelchair singing. We had over 100 people in that small space.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the beginning of, I would say, my exposure as an artist. There was a hat called the Kente hat, which was a very high hat that was featured in the Star Tribune.
Mm-hmm.
But most importantly, it got the word out there about the importance of our culture and our history.
Mm-hmm.
Church hats.
Church hats, yeah. And we called it Hatitude. But what happened after that was interesting, because we were using the art and the hats to go to different locations to teach about our culture. And I ended up reading a book called, it was The Souls of Women Folk. I can't think of the author, but it talked about how enslaved women and children would go out on Sundays and wear their own attire. I don't know how they got it across the water, but they brought it. They had their yams, their food, whatever, their okra. They went into the brush and they had their own church services on the very grounds where they were picking cotton for nothing. And then on Monday, they were back to trauma. And so I talked about that relationship and the glory of the beauty of the materials that our African queens wore. And then they were stripped off of their thrones and brought to America. And myself, as being close as a minister and getting to know ministers who, you know, women ministers and pastors, I got close to them enough to see their pain and their trauma. And other women, so on Women's Day, we all wore hats, but who knows what trauma we were experiencing internally. So to me, the hats have a lot of meaning in terms of who we are and what we represent in terms of our history. So this piece is called Divine. And it's one I just did, one of my second collage hats, which has actual beads on the shoulder. And then the one to the right I did a while ago, that's not part of the Hatitude, but that's called Eve. And I just have fun exploring. Drew is one who will lay out the pattern and structure and knows where he's going. I kind of like not to know where I'm going. And that's why we get along so well. Ebb and flow right here and structure and order over here. So
I have no idea where I'm going, but that's okay.
We do. It all works out. Yeah. So we have a friend, Sean Garrison Phillips, who's like our brother, family, and he inspired me to do some exploration in the abstract. So I have an abstract here on the left, and I find abstract kind of fun because you really don't know where you're going. You're just picking your colors and going for it. And so that piece was fun to make. And on the right is a piece called Liturgical Moves. That's like the first one I did. Like that one, I think was at Hennepin County, Mr. McFarlane, one of my first pieces exhibited, because I've been dancing and doing liturgical dance since I was 19 years old. And that's another part, I think, because I guess I've been an artist since I was a kid. I was always doing something artistic. If it wasn't dancing, it was singing. And then I went to State University of New York as a dance major. And so I like to do a lot of dance art.
So interdisciplinary artist.
Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Well, such beautiful work. You know, the feeling, the flow, you know, the excitement, and the depth all emerge and you know, speak. But you know what? If I'm permitted, Brother Oliver, I wanted to ask Beverly and Brother Drew to talk about family legacy history. And what triggered that was that you said Papa Tipton
Yeah.
early in the conversation. And I wanted you to know, and our listeners and viewers to know, that Tom Tipton was one of my mentors. He's one of the people that guided and shaped my public development and public life, and was just a huge, huge influence on me and on our community across the country. I used to talk about one of his campaigns as a PR executive. He was responsible for, among many things, but the phrase, the caption, "You can be Black and Navy too."
Navy too. Oh my
And
goodness.
so I said, what a revelation, because what he did was said, you don't have to abandon being a Black man
Right.
to serve your country. You can be
Right.
Black and Navy. So he said it to us, but he said it to them
Yeah.
because they wanted to exact our surrender of Blackness in order to be an American or to be Navy.
How about
And
that?
Tipton said, you know what? You can be Black and Navy too.
Mm.
And the best of you comes forth for yourself and for our nation. So I think
Yes.
that was one of the many jewels that he planted that really created pathways to freedom and conscientiousness for people that wanted to, be patriotic and were and are, but they
Right.
also wanted to do it without surrendering their identity, their humanity, and their legacy. So if you would both talk about your personal familial legacies, what is it that has poured into the creation of Beverly and Drew today?
Wow, that's amazing. I'm going to try to not cry when you spoke the way you did of my hero, my best friend, my singing partner, my traveling buddy. It is something else. I just posted something about him on Facebook today. And I was going to say earlier, I didn't want to interrupt Drew because he was in such an awesome flow about his pieces, but legacy is why we're here.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember Dad saying to me, I don't have much to leave you, but I leave you everything I have.
Mm-hmm.
He said that to me. And the last time he hugged me and said, I love you, I cried like a baby. I know I have part of his mantle, and part of that mantle that we have is marketplace ministry and business and the arts. And even singing every Sunday wasn't something that I thought I was going to do. I pastored back in Baltimore. Yes, I'm ordained, but when I came to Minnesota, it was all government, but it's government and the arts. And he also, when he hugged me, I think he gave me, my range went a little lower, it was more, it was down there where it wasn't that low. And so when I sing, I hear my dad's voice. There's a lot of legacy.
And what a beautiful voice it was.
Yes, it was.
Amazing.
It calmed the soul and spirit. Mr. McFarlane, I actually have photographs of my dad with Hubert Humphrey on the campaign trail. Pictures of him on the airplane with former governors, letters from Hubert Humphrey. And so I know the impact because I see it in the eyes of people and the ones that he would be around, and the various photographs of all the churches that he sang at, including he sang with Billy Graham. But I know that he was a mentor for many, Gary Hines and others who were looking for support and partnership. And it's just amazing. He literally called us home.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand until we got here. So a lot of our blessing is flowing because he left an impartation and he left his mantles with us. And that's important for anybody to understand. What are the mantles in your family? What has been passed on to you? You don't have to work as hard. If you got the mantle, you just have to keep your hands clean and your heart pure and hear God on direction and instruction on how to move forward. And if he could step in the gallery today, he would really be very proud of us, I think.
He opened doors for me, and I thank you, and thanking him, I pass those thanks on to you. But Brother Drew, as you were speaking, I was reveling, loving your voice. There's something powerful and magical and calming, and there's a depth in your voice that is from a place of assurance. I think it comes across that way to me. I'm the listener. I'm the viewer, the witness, And I just want to share that with you. And you remind me, Baltimore, I have a brother-in-law from Baltimore. You sound like my brother-in-law, Earl. So it's a family feeling right there already. We'll talk about your family, your legacy, if you would, brother.
Yes, appreciate that. Well, I grew up number 6 of 6 siblings, and there was a lot of music growing up. I have 2 sisters that did art, but also never pursued it. And Mama, she could draw. Mama was famous for drawing rabbits and birds. So that's where I got my rabbit and my bird drawings from. My parents, if my father was alive today, he would be 105. And if Mama was alive, she would be 99. So they grew up, my pop's from Maryland and my mother's from South Carolina. So they grew up with the bootstraps dynamic. And so I think what helped me to get into this art realm since we've been in Minnesota was the work ethics that I got from my father. I have this one story, if you guys could just indulge me.
Yeah, go ahead.
It's an incredible story. About, I think it was around 1983. And my father had showed me how to simonize a car. Now, simonize is different than turtle wax. Simonize, you have to do a car in quarters, because once that dry on you, it's all over. So I called myself wanting to impress my dad, and you simonize your car once a year, according to Pop. And so I went to his house and I simonized his car, and I forgot to do it in quarters. So I simonized his whole car. And folklore, I'm going to say that folklore has it that Pop came out and sat on his porch drinking a mint julep while I just spent my whole entire day removing that simonize from his car. And he didn't help me. So it was a great lesson in that. I got a lot of lessons from my folks being from the Carolinas and being from Maryland. I'm just 59, yes. And like a lot of my friends, they'll talk about their grandparents being just turning 80. And I tell folk, look, my pop would have been 105 if he was old. And so I got a lot of work ethics from him. When my father retired from the NSA, he started driving cab, and then he started a fishmonger company. And then he was fortunate enough to get a seafood store inside a supermarket in South Carolina. So I remember when he started with the fishmongering, and he purchased a 1979 blue Chevy pickup. And it was so important that maintained and was cleaned, because he was making a comparison between people who sell fish and how they just like reckless. And my father, his smock was always cleaned, and I would sit up in the truck, and I had to learn those fish that he would ask for, because his customers, it was all rock and roll. So I tell people today, as a result of that, I'm the greatest fish cleaner on earth. So, and you can test me, we can put that to the test, just give me some fish and I'll clean it for you. But I got ethics from my mother and father. And that's the reason why I think, there's a zero tolerance with my parents, and there's a zero tolerance with me. But yeah. So I think what I really acquired from them were the ethics that I have. And I just roll that over into every facet of my life.
What a wonderful story. And Brother Oliver, if you'll permit me, I would like to take a quick break here, but I want to continue this conversation for another 20 minutes or so, if that's okay. What I'll do is sort of announce a close to this segment, but then follow up with another piece that will be added to one of our programs next week, because I'm enjoying this conversation.
We're
like
having
you
ball too.
If I came to your gallery, I wouldn't want to leave. I'm in your presence now, and I don't want to leave.
Oh, wow.
Oh,
I don't want to leave. I'm enjoying this, and I appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
So let me do a break, and we'll wrap up this program, but then we'll reconvene in a minute with a 20-minute part 2 segment that will air on Monday.
Okay.
I'm Al McFarlane. This is the Conversation with Al McFarlane, the Healing Circle, and we'll see you in a bit.